In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up and edit an Airsoft video that you shot on multiple cameras recording at the same time. This will mainly be a technical overview of how to organize and synchronize the footage so that it's easy to edit. I will not be talking about making creative decisions such as adding graphics and titles and scope overlays or anything like that, but if you want to see another video on that, just let me know. The software I'm using for this is Adobe Premiere. If you've never used Premiere before, then I recommend you go elsewhere on YouTube and find a beginner's tutorial on Premiere so that you can come back here once you know the basics. So here's how I have my cameras set up. In this folder I have all my GoPro Hero 5 footage, and it's just on my head, getting everything that happens close to me. This folder I have all my RunCam 2 footage, which is mounted on my gun, getting a shot of everything I'm aiming at. And this folder has all the footage from my old GoPro Hero 2, which is mounted on the gun pointed back at me. It also has an external microphone plugged in, which is better audio quality than the other camera's microphones. So this is the camera that we'll be using the audio for in the end video. But it is important that all of the cameras record audio because that's how we're going to sync the cameras up. So from Premiere, I'm going to import those 3 folders directly. Just click on the folders and click Import. And that way it'll maintain the same folder structure that we had. Now for the purposes of this demonstration, I went ahead and deleted the clips that I know I'm not going to need for this video, just so it doesn't end up being an hour long. So this is the camera with the microphone that we're going to use, so let's consider that. Let's just call this camera 1, and let's call the Hero 5 camera 2, and let's just call the RunCam camera 3. The mic that we're going to use for the end video that I have plugged into the Hero 2 is mono, but the project is going to be stereo. So just so we don't run into any problems, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to select all the Hero 2 footage and right click and go to modify audio channels. And I'm going to change this to stereo and check this box and click OK. So now it's duplicated on the left and right channels. You probably don't have to do that as long as you're recording with a stereo microphone for your main microphone. So now we're going to sync all the clips together. Use Shift click to select all the footage, and then Command click to deselect the bins themselves. And right click on the first clip of your first camera and select Create Multi-Camera Source Sequence. I like to keep this as video clip name plus I'm just going to use underscore MC for multicam. So that's what the new clips that it creates are going to be named. Synchronized by audio. I don't like to move source clips to processed clips bin, so I'm going to leave that unchecked, and this setting doesn't really matter. So make sure your audio is coming from camera 1 and click OK. And now it's going to attempt to synchronize all that audio. And we get this message that tells us not all the clips could be synchronized. So let's take a look at what happened. It created these 3 clips, or these 3 multicam source sequences. This one looks good. One thing we can do is right click on it and click Open in Timeline. So now we can see everything that's happening inside this multicam source sequence. One thing I like to do is trim up the beginning so that it doesn't start on black in the source monitor. So I'm just going to trim off the beginning. And let's look at the next one. Okay, something is definitely wrong with this one, so let's open it in the timeline. Alright, so this will happen occasionally. It synced a group of clips here and a group of clips here. But then it synced those groups both together and put them in the same sequence. So what I'm going to do is make a note. I'm actually going to write down on a piece of paper what clips go together. So it looks like 232 and 003 go together. So I'm going to just make a note of that. and it looks like 005, 647, and 316 all go together too. So now that I know that, I'm going to delete this multicam source sequence and then sync them again separately. Now we know that 003 and 232 go together, but now we need to figure out which Hero 5 clip that goes with them. So to help figure that out, we can go to the last multicam source sequence that was correctly synced and open it in the timeline. Oh, it's already open. So the last Hero 5 clip that was synced was 644. So the next one we probably are looking for is 645. So now let's try syncing 003, 645, and 232. Just those three. Create multicam source sequence, sync by audio, okay. So for some reason it still didn't want to sync them by audio even though we know those three clips go together. So what we're going to have to do is tell it where to sync them. So I have to find a common point on each of those clips. I'm going to go to the first clip and I'm just going to find a spot where I start shooting. So right there, I'm going to press M on the keyboard to make a marker. Now I'm going to go to the next one that we're trying to sync, 645, and I'm going to try to find the same point in time and make a marker at that same point. And there's a little bit of an audio delay with this screen recording. So I'm going to make a marker right there. And now I'm going to go to the last one. You can click this little waveform button, by the way, in the source monitor to look at just the audio waveforms for that clip. And I'll make a marker on the last one. So now again I'm going to select those three clips, right click on the first one, create multicam source sequence, and this time instead of audio I'm going to select sync by clip marker and then click OK. So it'll instantly synchronize, and let's open it in the timeline, take a look at it. This one looks good. I'm just going to cut the black off the beginning of this one too. Let's look at the next one. This one looks good. I'm just going to cut the black off the beginning. And there was one more that we synced earlier, but it didn't work out, so we had to delete it. And we wrote it down. Those clips are 005, 647, and 316. So right click on 005, sync by audio. Open in timeline. And it looks good. Just cut the black off the beginning. So that was pretty easy. Now you can imagine that it gets a lot more complicated when you have a ton of footage. This was pretty easy because we didn't have much footage to deal with. But when you have like SD cards full of footage and you have a bunch of junk clips that you delete and then your file numbering gets messed up, and that can throw you off later when you're trying to fix issues. So I just needed to show you how to deal with problems as they come up. It can be a time-consuming process to sync audio, but it's really just a necessary process if you're shooting with more than one camera and you want to make the best video you can make. Now I'm going to do another thing that hopefully you don't have to do. My GoPro Hero 2 was shooting in 30 FPS, 30 frames per second, while my other two cameras were shooting in 60 frames per second. And of course I want the final end video that I'm trying to make, I want that to be in 60 frames per second. But since we use the GoPro Hero 2 as the main camera, or at least the first camera that we selected when we made the multicam source sequences, it made those multicam source sequences 30 frames per second, and it tells you all the frame rates right here. So I'm just going to change that by right-clicking, sequence settings, change this to custom, change this to 60 or 5994, and click OK. Click OK. Unfortunately, it doesn't let you select them all at once and change them all at once. You have to do them You have to do them individually. So custom 5994. OK, OK. Now again, that's something that you probably don't have to do as long as you shot all your cameras in the same frame rate. I shot in 30 on this one because there's no option to shoot in 60 FPS and 1080p on the Hero 2. So try to keep all your cameras shooting in the same frame rate when possible. Now we're finally ready to start editing. So I'm going to hide all these. Make a new sequence, and one way you can do that is right click on a clip and click new sequence from clip. Okay, and another thing, make sure that this button right here is selected. Insert and overwrite sequences as nests or individual clips. Make sure that's selected blue. If it's not, then you will be confused. If you have extra audio and video tracks, you can click over here and press delete tracks and tell it to delete all the empty video tracks and all the empty audio tracks. And I'm just going to take that off the timeline. Now there are a couple different ways that you can do the edit, but I'm going to show you how I've been doing it. This yellow outline shows, of course, which camera is currently selected. And when you make an edit on the timeline, that's the camera that's going to go down onto the timeline. And you can either choose different cameras by clicking on them or by pressing 1, 2, and 3 on your keyboard. I'm going to use this camera. I'm going to make an endpoint, press I on the keyboard. I'm going to make an endpoint right here. I'm going to show myself kind of going through the trees, through the leaves right here. Actually, I'm going to make the endpoint right here. Start it there. Alright, I'm going to make an out point there, and I'm going to press period on the keyboard to put that clip down onto the timeline, and I just zoomed in. I'm going to make an endpoint here. I'm going to use this camera. I'm going to go forward in time. I'm just going to show myself looking around. And I'm going to pause it there and put an out point. I'm going to put that down onto the timeline. And then I'm going to press the arrow key to go over one frame, make an endpoint, press play. I'm going to make an out point about there. I'm going to use this camera, put it down at the timeline. Then I'm going to go over one frame to the right, make another endpoint. I'm going to use this camera.
Sorry.
So I'm going to show those guys getting shot. And then I'm going to make an out point, put that down. Then I'm going to go to this camera, move over one frame, make an endpoint, and show myself running up here to cover. And that's good for now. And then of course you can refine it and make as many changes as you want to on the timeline. Let's just watch this through.
Sorry.
That's pretty much all there is to it. Of course, you might want to add music and sound effects and color correction and graphics and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to see me do a part 2 on this, then let me know what else you want to see. Thanks. Bye.
Ricocheted me.
Probably.
What?
I don't get paid to watch that.
How are we going to get out?